Finding a job has never been more digital, more automated, and for many people, more frustrating. Candidates feel ignored, employers are overwhelmed. Somewhere in between, trust in the process is breaking down. On this episode of Today in Tech, we're going to look at 2026 and ask the question, is the job market broken because of the economy or because of how we hire? We're going to jump into AI, automation, ghosting, unrealistic job requirements, and what companies and candidates need to rethink before the system breaks even further. Stick around. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Cliff Yurkowitz. He is the Vice President of Global Strategy and a futurist from Phenom. Welcome back to the show, Cliff.
Thanks for having me again, Keith.
Yeah, I love it when you have futurist in the title because it's always great to talk about the future and what's coming. But yeah, and you were just a great guest we had on a few months ago. So again, welcome back. Let's frame the moment here. When you look at 2026, what worries you more about the job market? Is it the economy itself, or is it how hiring is actually working today? Because let's face it, 2025 sucked in terms of trying to find a job or trying to find someone to work for you as a company.
Yeah, I think, I would start by it's not the economy that worries me. It's the reaction, or I should say the lack of action from employers to the unpredictability of the economy, which is always there. And that's the stunning part. Like, this isn't anything new. 2025 was fairly terrible because organizations allowed themselves to be paralyzed by the unknown of the technology and the impact that it might have on their workforce. And I would say that's sort of the majority of what happened. But there were pockets that I certainly saw, and I'm sure you saw and your audience saw as well, where individual companies reacting and creating action based on what's happening in the marketplace, like removing the confusion of the doubt and just saying, we're going to commit to something, knowing that it's an experiment, probably will fail, but we'll learn. And we'll come into 2026 being that much smarter. And I think that's the dichotomy right now that we're seeing in the hiring market space is the few companies by percentage that chose to engage with the technology and understand its challenges, risks, some benefit, are now set up far better to understand how they need to hire, how they need to position the technology in terms of driving outcomes, how they can experiment, things of that nature, and who in their organization, either existing or to hire, is going to help them fulfill those objectives. So it is a very, very different world, but it's not the economy.
Okay. All right. Let's get that out of the way. But so there is a process breakdown and there is a technology issue. Would you say that a lot of companies that tried adding AI to their process, whether it was early AI or the newer stuff that came out, it feels like most companies are doing it wrong, or they're stumbling when it comes to trying to find people. Just from anecdotal evidence that I have, everyone that I have talked to about trying to find a job is just like, no, it's just not working at all.
Yeah, I would say it depends. Overall, yes, I would agree with your general statement that it's not really working. What I would say is, why is it not working is probably the question most people want answered. And that's, to me, I'm going to oversimplify it and we can dig into the details of that and kind of pick it apart. Okay. But there's a huge difference between acquiring a technology and adopting a technology. And so the reaction in the marketplace last year was, the marketing around artificial intelligence was you have to have it. And so people reacted to that and bought it and said, and this is a very common story. And I'm not picking on any one technology. I'm just going to name some just, because it's so commonplace. Like, you're a Microsoft shop, you turned on Copilot for everyone because it's built into your tech ecosystem that supports it. So you turn it on for everyone, and then what? It's the then what that never got answered. Right. People don't know how to use the technology to create more value in their work. They didn't understand the adoptive nature that this technology requires. It's not transactional. It is very strategic how artificial intelligence has to be thought of. And that is a shift because artificial intelligence if you go back even 5 to 10 years ago, was somewhat transactional. I'm going to turn AI on to do something, right? It's going to basically a transactional function, and then I'm going to get on with my day. Well, the AI we're talking about now is very, very different, right? So you're talking about generative and now agentic technologies that have the ability to augment somebody's work significantly. And that changes how they work and the value of the work that they're doing. Well, nobody redefined that for the individual contributor. They just said, here's a license for ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, figure it out. And then they're wondering why initiatives failed. And that, that MIT study was really interesting because it's saying something like 95% of all these Gen AI initiatives fails. Well, of course they did. They had no measures of success set up. They had no adoption plan. They had no job transformation, within that. Of course it's going to fail. Like, how could if you went into it thinking you weren't going to fail, like, it's almost delusional in a way, right? Like, if you think about it. So that was really the big problem and why it's so different.
Yeah. And so, a lot of companies that were adopting AI or using it, it was supposed to improve the hiring process. That's the bill of goods that we were all sold. And so have you seen spots where it's actually genuinely helped? Because it feels like it's caused more damage. There was this whole idea of it would filter through a lot of the resumes that were coming in because there was such an because AI also makes it easier for job candidates to apply to jobs. And so, or is it something else? Was it the bias? Was it just being overconfident in these tools? But it seems like the AI tools are now a barrier rather than actually speeding up for a lot of different positions.
Yeah, I'll speak for my company because I have the stats from my company, Phenom.
Sure.
Which when we've been doing the core matching technology has been part of our platform now for 14 years. So this is nothing new to us or our clients or the space in which we operate. So I think that there are a couple things to unpack there. The first is, can technologies like this cause more harm than good initially? The answer is, of course, yes. Of course it can. If you're not understanding the parameters by which, let's say in this case, a recruiter needs to work, right? So if all you're doing is turning on some matching technology, and yes, in this environment we're in where candidates are now going in and putting their resume CV into ChatGPT, putting the job posting into ChatGPT and say, make me a perfect match, right? So now everybody becomes a perfect match according to the algorithm, right? Which absolutely can happen. If that's all you're doing, then that is a transactional function of artificial intelligence, and that is going to create problems. What we do instead is, with our technology, which is very different, it's not just who's the best match, but it's also looking at the patterns of the person and the role. And it's very, very hard to game our system, because if somebody comes in as a perfect match, the interrogation of the algorithm goes a little bit deeper. And then it's giving information to the recruiter, because we always want the recruiter to be, and you'll hear me say this probably more than once as we talk today, it's not a human in the loop process, which is the wrong way of thinking it. Human in the loop really denotes, I need to check the outcomes that AI is providing me. I'm going to tell you it should be human in the lead, where AI is just augmenting and assisting that recruiter to understand where their attention should be given. I'll give you this as an example. And this is public knowledge. It was posted, a few weeks ago, by Southwest Airlines. It was actually a big story. That they turned on a posting for flight attendants. They do this every year, by the way. Like, every airline does this. Like, once a year, airlines typically post for flight attendants, for a period of time, usually 1 to 3 days or something like that, because they get floated applications. And full disclosure, Southwest is our client. We've been working with them for a long time. And that's not really relevant, because that's not really the point. The point is, they posted the job and within hours had 15,000 applicants, right? And then they had to shut it off because they'd reached their threshold. That's as much as they needed in their pipeline to hire X number of flight attendants, it's 500 or 1,000, whatever it is.
Right.
for their operation. And they don't have 100 recruiters or even 50 recruiters looking at 15,000 applications. They have a handful of really specialized. These are people that their full-time job is to hire flight attendants. So they really understand the role. And it's really hard to game that system with them. So what the artificial intelligence is doing is saying, here's 15,000 people. Here's your first tranche of 2,500 that everything looks really solid, right? And it's not just the resume looks good. It's the skills that they're bringing, the demonstrated experience to meet business outcomes and drivers, and the value connection, your values and principles, because all of those things can be derived from, not only the job posting, but the response from the candidate, their resume, and some other things that they provide. So that information goes to the recruiter. So in that sense, it's really helping the recruiter saying, out of 15,000 people, focus on these first. Like, you as the human, go through this. Let's do some screening. Let's do some additional deep dive on that information. Artificial intelligence is going to also be there post application in this. We do this in our system to allow them to gather additional information, additional intelligence that gives them the full intention of what that candidate is looking for. And so that sentiment data becomes really important. So if all you're doing is transactionally leaving it at matching, you have handcuffed your recruiters, yes. But if you go further than that, then you've given them a real tool to work with.
Yeah, and I want to bring out a quote that you recently wrote a couple of articles on LinkedIn on one of your columns about this, about whether AI has actually helped or hurt the recruiters that are out there. And so I think this quote discusses why candidates are basically using AI now to try to find the job. And it says, every candidate's experience perfectly mirrors the job requirements. The matching technology surfaces hundreds of perfect fits because candidates reverse engineer what the algorithm wants to see. And then you said the technology is not the villain, and it isn't broken, it's the process. When I read something like that, as someone who might be applying for a job or knowing other people that are looking for jobs, it feels like as a job candidate that you have to use AI tools to at least try to match it. Because if I tried to, submit my resume, which was written before AI, I just feel like it would be submitted and then it would just be instantly rejected because it didn't match these keywords or no, the human didn't even get to that point where they look at it. So, I'm kind of stuck in a catch-22 then. If I can't really use the matching tech, I can't use AI to try to, get through that first hurdle, but I also can't do it the old way because I know that a human's not going to see it because it's going to get spit out.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, you're bringing up a very real problem. And I can't speak to how every tool out there works. So again, I'll just keep it to how we do it. And
this is all anecdotal anyway, Cliff. This is all just based on what people are telling me when we talk about it.
But I can say, I mean, there's a lot of really great players in the space that are doing similar things to what Phenom's doing. So and I think a lot of people, especially recruiters and leaders in TA, know who the really solid players are, and I'll group Phenom into that, of course. But if it is just keyword matching, you're correct. And so the really simplistic, and I will say cheap, off the shelf tools, that's all they're really doing is keyword matching. And why is that any different than a Boolean search 5 years ago, right? Like in reality, what really good technology does is it looks at the context of the information that it's given. It gives the candidate, in this case, the opportunity to provide further detail. So when you quote me saying the problem is the process, I'm going to point back to the job description. And I'm going to tell you that almost all job descriptions across the universe of job descriptions are fundamentally flawed. And because of the way that they're written, it's the old industrial age structure of defining work. I'm going to define work by here's the requirements of the job. And there is some skills stuff in there, but then you get into the experience layer where you need X number of years at this and you have to have done that. So what, right? Like that is not actually what gets someone hired today.
Yeah.
What gets someone hired is tell me what your 10 to 15 core skills are. What outcomes have you driven with those skills in your current or past roles? how are those skills and those outcomes aligned to what we want to see you do based on, again, you're going to have to modify the job description, but based on what you think the role is. And then again, what do you value as a human being, right? Like where do your values sit? Like, are you service oriented? Would you rather, be, more subjective than objective in your job, depending on what it is? Those things are things that our algorithm does pick up. So when I'll simplify this really, really simple. If you've got a resume.
You go ahead.
Yeah, it's really, really quick, Keith. If you've got a resume where you have demonstrated experience and outcomes, the outcomes that you've driven, AI can't fake that. You can't put that into GP. It cannot make it up. It can make some stuff up, but recruiters will see right through it. But real outcomes, when you really connect what you can do, your skills to what you can drive, good recruiters, and most recruiters are very, very good at this. This is the human relationship piece. They pick up on that right away. Our algorithms in this space, the really good enterprise level algorithmic matching understands that relationship and helps a recruiter find it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to just jump back on the job description part as well. It feels like now that even some of the job descriptions are being written by AIs. I think, the either the HR people or the hiring manager or whatever, in a lot of these positions, there are a lot of highly technical skills that people need to have that they don't understand. And so they just, they start asking like, all right, so, I'm looking for a video editor here. And I've seen this, a friend of mine, told me about this. They were looking at the job description, which, he felt was written by AI, and they were making sure that you have skills in iMovie. And iMovie, in the video editing space was like 20 years ago. Like nobody's using iMovie anymore. So it's either written by AI or it's written by someone who has no clue what the job is going to be. And so now, does my friend have to lie in the resume and basically says, oh yeah, I'm proficient in iMovie. I'm also proficient in, 20 other pieces of software that are better than that. But it just, again, but if there's if you're not matching iMovie here with the iMovie in your resume, then you're screwed. So,
so here's one other possibility, because I've seen this happening right now, that's a trap. That somebody put iMovie in there. This is a possibility. I've actually seen it with some other roles. Okay. They put iMovie in there to make sure that AI isn't responding to it. That because a human being might respond back, hey, not sure that you noticed this, but you have iMovie in there. Like nobody's using, no professional video editor cares about iMovie.
Right.
Was that really your intention? You know how fast that's going to get the attention of a recruiter? So it could be, there's a possibility, because I see that, this goes back to the Rolling Stone green M&Ms in the green room, right? Yeah. So back in the day, like a lot of people don't know the story, and I'll keep it brief. In the Rolling Stones contract, in the Rolling Stones contract, they literally had a line in there. You could look it up. It's all over Google. You can see it. It said, there's a bowl of M&Ms, but green only. They didn't put that in there because the band liked green M&Ms. They put it in there to make sure somebody was reading the contract and they go, do you really want green M&Ms? I actually think you're going to start seeing some of this stuff, these Easter eggs, to see if a human being is really responding to the job posting. So there is a possibility, Keith. Okay. I may be exaggerating a little bit, but there's a possibility that could be an Easter egg.
All right. What about like unrealistic job requirements that are in some of these listings too, where they're looking for, someone with 15 years of AI experience, yet AI has only been out for 5 years. And, I hear that a lot in the people trying to find entry level jobs. It's just, they're applying for jobs and the requirements on them are just so unrealistic. Again, because either written by an AI or written by someone who doesn't understand what is really required.
Well, again, to me, both are an opportunity, right? Like, if there are these kinds of, you could call it egregious or you could just call it, slips, whether it's written by AI or not is sort of irrelevant to me. It's all, okay. Are you seeing it as a negative? Like if you're going into your job search and you're seeing these things, you're going, wow, that's a silly job posting. That recruiter or that company doesn't know what they're talking about. Or you can say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to educate. What AI you're talking about? AI is 70 years old, 70 right. years old, right? Somebody puts it in there. Maybe they didn't, qualify 15 years of total artificial intelligence and machine learning experience, and you're just assuming it's about Gen AI or agentic, which is, the last couple of years. You take an opportunity to qualify that and then quantify it. in your response, a good recruiter again is going to pick that up. So even if it were laziness, it's still an opportunity to set yourself apart. Take the positive, take it as an opportunity to say, I'm going to show a little bit of my expertise here. I'm going to break down what 15 years really looks like. Hey, you mean 15 years of core machine learning and 3 to 5 of generative and agentic. Here's how I fulfill those requirements, right? So yeah, you could look at it from the negative. I think all you're doing is limiting your opportunities to demonstrate, how you can approach that.
Okay, so that's almost like going on offense instead of playing defense on some of these things.
It's too easy to play defense. Nobody's getting this perfectly right, Keith. We're all experimenting right now.
All right. I wanted to quickly talk about the ghosting that a lot of people are experiencing, and I know it's really frustrating. I think the last time I was out of work, I think I sent out like 100 resumes to 100 different jobs, and I maybe heard back from 5 of them. And so, a lot of them were these automated emails. So it's like, thank you, not interested, or thank you, we're going in another direction. Even those, while they were annoying, at least it was an acknowledgement that they received it. And now I'm hearing that things are getting even worse. And I got, we had some people on from Phenom on our other show, Demo, and they were actually showing how they were automating response so that the candidate didn't necessarily feel ghosted. So it's an acknowledgement that there's a problem out there. Is it just because, again, you've got 15,000 resumes to go through and you can't provide individual responses to each one of them? Or is it something else? Or do a lot of companies feel that ghosting is okay?
I don't think the companies that I work with would recognize that as a problem. And again, they're leveraging R or other technology to try to eliminate that. But let's back up. My first problem with this process is the expectation from the candidate or applicant that they deserve a response. Right? You don't.
Okay.
You don't deserve a response. If all you and I'm gonna
wait. So if I don't deserve a response, do I deserve knowing that somebody got it or received it or saw
you don't.
it? I don't deserve that.
Hold on,
either.
but I'm gonna qualify this for you, Keith.
But you're the company that's trying to employ me.
Right. I get it.
Okay.
If all you've done, and this is where we are in a different world. Right? This isn't even 10 years ago, especially it's not 20 years ago. If all you're doing is applying and that's it, you're not doing any other outreach, you're not trying to make any other connection, you're not trying to make yourself more relevant even in the application process. You are just like shotgunning your resume to as many jobs as you can. You deserve nothing. You deserve nothing. Now, the fact that a company might reach out and give you an automated response, at least that is something. What our automation tries to do is tries to pick out something personal within that and maybe even provide what the next steps could be so that it's not as much of a black hole. But again, when you like the average job, I forget, I read it on the Bureau of Labor Statistics at some point. I think the average job gets like 300 applications, right? I mean, do you really expect as a candidate for a recruiter to sit down and write a thank you letter every time you submit a resume? Like that expectation is where I'm going. I'm being a little bit hard.
Okay. All right.
Right?
So maybe in that initial outreach, that I'm okay with that being automated. But what happens when you get through the job process a little bit? Maybe you have 1 or 2 interviews and then they still ghost you. And then, or maybe you get to the point where there's 2 people left and you're interviewing, it's just between you and one other person. And then they hire the other person and they never tell you that you were never hired. I mean,
yeah. Well, this is where right? I'm gonna probably agree with you and the majority of the audience in saying, once you make that personal connection with a particular applicant, the employer has the responsibility to manage that relationship like they would in their own personal life. Would they want their brother, sister, mother, father to be ghosted? And that I would say there's really great technology out there to help them make sure that they're responding the right way. We all need reminders. We all need help in keeping up with the volume of work and things like that. So there's no problem with using technology. But the reality is, I mean, if you've gone to that first layer of interview and you're getting ghosted, I would say that's a good sign run from that employer, because do you think it's going to be
Right.
any better when you become an employee? But the
Right,
companies
right.
that do a really good job, that leverage technology, make it personal, close that loop in a way that leaves you with a really good experience, even if you didn't get the job, that is more effort than actually hiring someone, because they have to do that with probably dozens, if not hundreds of people. They have to close that loop to get to the 1, 2, or 10 people that they're actually hiring. So that's a good sign. Like, that's probably somebody I want to work for, even though I didn't get that job. Like, tell me why I didn't get the job, and let me go after the next one because I liked this experience, even though the result wasn't positive for me. That's the difference. So there's some signs there that I think you've got to play into. And I do think you bifurcate the experience between just applying to a job and getting into the process. Once it's in the process, then yeah, the employer has an absolute responsibility.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. So when you talk with employers about maybe some of the frustrations they're seeing out there in hiring employees, is there a misunderstanding about how, what the candidates are experiencing? Again, the emotional toll that it takes on someone who's been trying to find a job. This perception of silence, for example, with the ghosting, and then repeated rejection cycles over and over again. That can probably wear down a job candidate. But from the same end on the employer side, I hear stories of like, well, yeah, we put this position out and we get 100 resumes, but they all stink. They're all just they're not a great fit. And they're frustrated because they want to hire, a position that's needed, but like there's a mismatch there too. So do you think that the employers understand? Do each side understand what the other's going through? I guess is my
I think
question.
the majority is. Yeah, I think this. I would say you're talking about extreme edge cases that make for great media reporting.
An anecdote. That's what I do, Cliff.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's okay. Like, and it's good to talk about these things. But unemployment's at 4.4%. There's 7.7 million open jobs right now, which is fairly low compared